Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for watching on the glide slope. I had some requests from a couple of viewers to maybe do a little bit more narration about what I'm doing in the sim and what I'm seeing, and so I'm happy to do that today. And you know, just remember I'm simply at this point a private pilot student, a student pilot. I don't have any found my pilot's license yet, and so certainly don't take this as any form of instruction. But I'm happy to just talk through what's up and what I'm thinking, and we'll go ahead. So we're going to do a short flight today. I've loaded into Monument Valley, which is UT25 on the charts, and using the Orbx scenery, which I just downloaded for Monument Valley, so I'm excited to see how it looks. It looks pretty cool already. And we'll do a quick flight around Monument Valley and then land and be done. We're in the Cessna 172 from A2A Simulations today. I'm training in a Cessna 172, so I'm trying to use this aircraft as much as I can. The one thing about it that I'm not a big fan of is it has the compass down here when I have a compass up here, and if I wanted to take the time to reroute some wires, I'd actually set the compass here so I couldn't see that, but I just haven't got around to doing that yet. So we will take out our checklist and start our process. So let's presume I've done a walk around, and now we are in the airplane and we're going to start getting ready to go. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to push the throttle in about 1/4 of an inch, put our mixture into rich, make sure the carburetor heat is off, and then we're going to turn on the master switch and we're going to run the fuel pump for a few seconds to prime the engine. We're looking for a positive fuel flow here, which we have. That should be enough. Then we turn on our beacon lights, take the mixture out to sort of lean for flight operations, and then we'll switch the switch. And when it starts to catch, we will enrich the mixture. Come on, baby. There we go. That's sort of how it is in my experience starting a cold 172. They can take a minute. The one I train in has fuel injection. If it's cold, it takes sometimes quite a few attempts to start, but if it's warm, it fires right up. I just flipped the switch down here to turn on the cabin vents. This aircraft will fog over if you don't have the cabin vent running if it gets warm, simulated inside the airplane, so I've got that set. We lower to about 1,000 RPM, 800 RPM, which is where we are. We have our parking brakes on, so we're not going anyplace. Check for our oil pressure. It's up and normal. Oil temperature is coming up. We've got gas. Fuel flow looks good. Vacuum pressure is good. Amperage is good. Turn on our avionics. Get our master switch for our avionics on. The radios should come alive. There they go. The GPS should turn on. We're on the ground, and I like to turn on strobe and landing lights on the ground just so that people can see us. Transponder is in standby, set for VFR. That's correct. Flaps are up. Amp meter looks good. Heading indicator set. We're going to be departing on 3-4, but an interesting thing about this airport is there's no go-around. As you can see, there's these cliffs right in front of you. So you actually depart on 3-4 to the north, and you land the other way on whatever that is, 1-7 or 1-8. So it's a little bit different than you would normally have. So it'll be 3-4 going up, out, and 1-6 coming back. So you can turn your heading indicator to be one of those headings to help you run fly a nice square pattern. And so I'll set it to 1-6. You can also do that here. So my heading bug is set. There's no weather here, so we can't get the ATIS weather, and the closest weather station is far enough away it probably wouldn't be relevant. So what we will do is we will set our barometer based.
Pause. System test OK.
That's the altitude warning system for the GTN GPS going through its check. So what we'll do is we'll set our altimeter based on what we know the altitude of the field to be, and the field's altitude is 5192, and it looks like we're just about right for that. In fact, we're just right for that. Maybe a little, there we go. and that means that our pattern altitude should be about 6,100, 6,200 feet. When we come back, autopilot we're not going to use, so that's taking care of flight controls. That goes up, that goes down, that goes down, that goes up. Elevator seems to be working. And then we would get clearance. Now, there's no tower here, and the general CTAF frequency, which is what you use to talk to other aircraft that might be in the area, is 122.9. I already have that dialed in on the radio. So we would do a call when we're about to enter the runway. But we're going to go get ready to go here, and then we'll make that call. Parking brake is set, everything's locked, seats are up, flight controls are free and correct, instruments are set, fuel quantity check. Shutoff valve is in, mixture to rich, fuel selector valve is to both. Elevator trim our elevator for takeoff. Now one thing I'm going to do here is in this GPS, the altitude warning system will blare at us repeatedly because we're flying around, we are flying around so many cliffs and things, and so I don't want to have to put up with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the main page of this, go to the terrain settings, and turn off the TAWS system so that it doesn't constantly warn us about terrain. Okay, we will now taxi out to where we're supposed to go, so we'll release the parking brake, give ourselves a little gas. Kind of cool, they've got some pipers on the ramp here, some cubs. There's the motel that's here, which is kind of cool. And here we are right at the threshold, so we'll stop here and we will do our run up. Standing on the brakes, we'll take the throttle up to 1800 RPM. Magnetos, so what we do is we switch off one set of magnetos and look for a drop in RPM of about 50 to 100, but not too much. There's right, back to both. There's left, back to both. Suction gauge, vacuum gauge is good, fuel flow is good, gas is good, pressure is good, oil temp is good, amperage is good. Carb heat, we're not going to worry about. Annunciator panel is clear. We will now turn off our strobe. We've got our beacon and our landing lights on, which is good. I like to be seen. We'll now take out our throttle back to 1,000. And let's put the strobe back on just because it's on the checklist. Now we're ready to go. So now I'll make the CTAF call, and if I was doing this in the real world, I would say Monument Valley traffic, Skyhawk 15 Juliet Golf departing runway 34 to the east Monument, and then we would go. Now this Orbx scenery is pretty complicated. I expect I'll have a few more stutters flying than I would normally have, but we should have a pretty good frame rate. We're going to need all of our throttle on this short field, so push it in and give some right rudder here to account for the prop, and we're moving. Airspeed indicator's alive. 40 knots, 50, 60, 65, rotate, and we're flying. Now I'll trim the aircraft down a little bit here so we don't climb too fast. So here we go. Now the main part of Monument Valley in terms of the things to see is to the east, so now that we're clear of the runway, we'll make a turn here. There's a local high school over here that they've rendered in Orbx that's pretty cool looking, that has kind of a neat football field. We'll do a quick overview fly of that. Trim the airplane down a little bit. Now we're going to stay about this altitude, so I'm not going to lean the aircraft very much, but I will take my throttle down to about 2,000 RPM, maybe 2,100. I'll do a tip of the wing here so you can see this scenery from Orbx out the right window. Adjusting the trim wheel here so that we are in a level flight. And there's that high school out that window with its football field, which is kind of cool. I don't know how well you can see it on the highway, but there are, they've got billboards rendered, which is kind of a neat touch. So one of the things you learn in flight instruction is that you use the throttle for altitude and pitch for speed. And so I want us to climb a little bit here, so I'll give us a little more gas. Maybe trim the airplane just a little bit. Now this is the motel and hotel that they use in Monument Valley, the visitor center and the rest. Looks out over the valley. It's right in front of us. And then also Orbx has rendered the pylons for the Red Bull aircraft races, which are pretty cool. They've got those here also. They race around Monument Valley monuments. Monument Valley straddles the Arizona and Utah, and it's not a very big area, but it's known for these large sandstone outcroppings. I'm from this neck of the woods, well, northern Utah originally, and the sandstone that makes up these cliffs is called Wingate Sandstone, for those who have that Jeopardy question they'd like to answer at some point. Overflying the hotel.
500.
That's the GPS just letting us know we're 500 off the deck here. He's back on the throttle, and now we'll tour some of the monuments here. They've really done a beautiful job with this scenery. It's really pretty impressive. My understanding is that if you change the time of year to winter, they've got snow on this stuff, which is cool. They've also done a great job of rendering all the trails and things through the park. I've got a good buddy who used to do scenic tours in around the Grand Canyon and Zion and Canyonlands area in Utah. He used to do this kind of stuff in the real life. It's a little too skinny flying for my taste. But Orbx does an extraordinary job. I mean, this just looks fantastic. The performance is quite smooth.
500.
Thank you, dear. I've had a couple of viewers giving comments on the Glide Slope blog about some flying tips, which I really have enjoyed. I got one the other day from somebody who told me to go past the threshold markers when I land at an airport and taxi off the runway. I always thought I was supposed to hold short of them on the runway side. He said, no, actually you drive through them on departure, on arrival, and you hold short of them on arrival, on departure. You know what I'm trying to say. Okay, we're going to go down around this set of monuments down here, and then we'll come back and head back and then come in on 1-6, fly our pattern, and make a landing. Boy, that looks cool. While doing that, we'll get our arrival checklist ready to go. I found the checklist just on the web. If you do a Google search for just about any form of checklist you'd want, there are multiple options, and then I just had it laminated and I use it. I found a longer checklist for the 172 and 182 that's a booklet form, but it's too complicated to use in the cabin, so I just have this thing that works great. And then this one has the emergency procedures, as well as the different V speeds. Maneuvering speed, takeoff speed, glide speed, the rest. Pretty good job. If I don't know if you can see the cliffs in the distance there, but I'm really impressed with just the Orbx scenery generally in their land classes. And I run the Ultimate Terrain X mesh and stuff, land classes underneath this, but I've really enjoyed flying around with the Orbx stuff. A lot of the Utah flying I'll do, I actually will use and enjoy using photorealistic scenery. The stuff from Mega Scenery Earth is great, and I hear that the blue marble or blue sky stuff is also great. But I've found the details in terms of the airports and the rest that Orbx produces are just really make a great, very authentic feeling experience. I've really enjoyed them. Okay, so we're going to buzz around this monument here when we pass it, and we will make our way back. Right now we're at about 6,500 feet, which again would be about a little above our pattern altitude, so we won't have to lose too much altitude when it comes time to land here in a minute. I had a viewer ask if I would do Twitch TV, and I don't know how easy it would be for me to stream it from the GoPro, since what you see is the cabin, and live action is probably just a little more than I want to do anyway. Okay, so straight ahead is where the field is. This highway takes us out there. And we'll come in, and again we're going to land on 1-6 even though we took off on 3-4. So we'll do our best to fly a standard pattern. Let's come around these monuments one more time just because they're so cool looking. Which means we'll enter the downwind leg at about 45 degrees, and then we will make our appropriate changes to throttle and flaps and the rest. The 172 in the simulator I've found is in some ways a little harder to land than the real thing. I mean, the real thing is certainly harder to land, but Especially in the flare, I found this airplane from A2A balloons quite easily. When you're landing in the real thing, what I've found is, especially when you're over the runway, you really have to pull back on the stick to bring the nose up and let the airplane settle, and it doesn't balloon very easily. It just sort of coasts. With this, what I found is if I pull up, the thing can shoot straight up in the air. And I've modified the sensitivity settings and the curvature of the response curve for the yoke a little bit to try to make that a little more realistic, and it's getting closer, but I still find it tends to pop up more than I'd like. So my landings on this have not been very pretty as I try to get that mastered. Okay, so we're going to come and fly right here, make a right-hand turn between these two monuments, and then we will fly back over the visitor center and head back to the strip. I'm also trying to practice in the simulator to not do anything that I wouldn't do in real life. Now in real life I wouldn't fly around between these monuments or go 500 feet over the deck of this motel, obviously. But I mean things like not make turns more than 30 degrees. That thing is cool looking. Boy, they do a great job with the scenery. That monument is just impressive. The quality of the textures is great. So I wouldn't do that kind of stuff, but the fact of the matter is I think you're building habits all the time if you're training for a pilot license, and you might as well build good ones. So, that being the case, here I'd climb up to about 6,100. Actually, we're at 63, so we can start to get ready to come in here. Now, the strip is right at the base of those cliffs, so I probably can't do a direct 45-degree pattern entry. But I can do pretty close to it, and I'm probably about 4 or 5 miles away now, so I'd make a CTAP call. Monument Valley traffic, Skyhawk 15 Juliet Golf is 5 miles east of the field, entering 45 degrees downwind for 16 Monument Valley. And left pattern is standard traffic pattern. The chart would say if it's a right pattern, if it's not, and it's a left, so that means we'll make left-hand turns. And I'm already, not even close to downwind leg yet, but what I would be trained to do right now would be to get my pattern altitude right and already back off the throttle to about 2,000 and start getting the aircraft ready for landing. So that means fuel selector is to both. It is. Mixture is rich. It is. Throttle we'll work with as we go. Carb heat, this suggests on, so we'll go ahead and we'll do that. And we're ready to go. Landing light is on. So we can see the field there. Again, we don't have wind, but wind doesn't matter with this because the fact of the matter is that you have to land on 1.6. You can't land on 3.4. It's too steep of an approach. It's impossible with the cliff. So I'll make about 45 degrees here for the center of the field. Cut the throttle to come down to 6,100 feet. And about here is about where I would be in terms of entering the pattern. One of the things you learn to do in my instruction, I'm learning to do my instruction, is to tell if I'm at the right pattern distance by where the field lines up on the wing strut. And it would be about halfway up the strut. I'm a little lower than pattern altitude here. I'll descend it a little too much. Then we're going to fly about opposite to where beam the numbers, which is right now. Now we'll cut to about 1500, trim the aircraft up, and we'll start getting a nice departure of about 200 or 300 feet per minute. And we want our airspeed to get down to about 80. Well, we're inside 100, so we can put down our first notch of flaps. Got to keep the nose down. And you fly till the airport is about 45 degrees behind you, which is a little harder to see in this because I don't have a back window. But we continue to descend about like this. Airspeed, we want to be about 65 to 70. We're on about a 34 heading, which is what we should be. We're at about 70 knots, which is about where I want to be. And I'm probably about right to make my turn onto base leg. So I'd say Monument Valley traffic, Skyhawk 15 Juliet 5, turning onto base. Now, the altitude has come up on us, so 500, I don't want to go much lower than we are right now. Or the terrain has come up on us a little bit. Until we're heading west. Give another notch of flaps. You can see the hill out to the left that we're flying over. But we're about 500 feet off the deck, which is about where we want to be. We're turning on to final. And we're doing about a little slow. We're about 55 knots, so we need a little power. And we'll make our turn on to final. I overshot the runway just a little bit. There we go. Trim the aircraft so its nose is down a little bit. Final flaps. Pick a runway landing point. I'm going to pick just past the numbers. As you can see, there is no go around here. One chance is what you get. We're a little faster than I'd like to be, so we'll nose up a little bit. We're about 65, which is about right. Knots. One hand on the throttle, full flaps. When I know I'm going to make the runway, I'm going to kill the throttle and dead stick it, which is about now. Then again, I just have to float the airplane. A little hard. See, and the real thing here, you would pull back on the stick and pull back on the stick and pull back on the stick and pull back. That's what it would be like. And I find it's hard to get that first time around with this A2A. It's just I pull back on it and it doesn't settle. It pops. But the third time worked just right. So there we go. Monument Valley, a quick tour of the Orbx scenery. Hope you liked it. Hope you didn't mind the narration. Thought I'd give it a shot based on the request, and it was fun. Hope it was fun for you too. We'll go park over here by one of these pipers and we'll go over and get something to eat in this a virtual beer in this virtual restaurant. But not till we're done with our checklist. Now that we're off the strip, we'll clean up the aircraft, put up our flaps. Stand on the brakes, parking brake set, close our cowl flap, back out of the throttle, Mixture all the way back to idle cutoff. Magnetos off and then back on very quickly to clear them. Avionics off. Lights off. Carb heat off. Master switch off. Vent closed. Turn off the lights. And we're done. Hope you enjoyed it.